HBCU Digest, welcome back. We are, or not we, I am truly privileged to welcome our next guest, the esteemed president of Prairie View A&M University, Dr. Ruth Simmons, who I've been chasing for years. And she finally gave me the time of day to talk about a major gift to the institution, a $10 million gift that will support students' pursuit of an academic degree in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, which will in large part cover the average costs associated with attendance and completion. Dr. Simmons, again, an honor. Can you talk about this gift? And while we don't and won't know who it is, what is it that your conversations with that person that particularly interested them in this kind of support for students? Of all the things that you could give to students, scholarships and research stipends and all that, covering the cost, particularly those that have been impacted by COVID-19, why that area of philanthropic focus for them?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about Prairie View. I appreciate it. But I wish I could tell you that this is a gift that I pursued. In truth, it is not. I have always said that our highest priority at Prairie View is to support our students, to support them well enough that they can continue their studies, continue and complete their studies. Mm-hmm. And so I set as a high priority raising funds for financial aid. Out of the blue, this donor called me and said that they wanted to help our students. It's one of those ideal circumstances that a president dreams of. And it happened just that way. They didn't say that it had to be used in precisely this way. But we decided that this would be a very good use of the funds because of this unique period that we're in. Mm-hmm. Students and their families are so stressed by COVID and the radical change in circumstances that COVID has brought about, including joblessness, the inability of some of our students to keep their jobs, which they use to help pay for their education. It just seemed to me to be the right thing to do given COVID. And so I'm just delighted that we're able to put this to work for our students. And in checking with the donor and saying, what would you think if we used the funds in this way? They said very enthusiastically, this was great. So I'm happy, the donor's happy, we're happy we're able to provide this opportunity for our students.
We keep hearing, or at least the young people on Twitter keep talking about, they keep asking the question, why is it that, Howard Morehouse Spelman get all of the money? When we hear announcements about gifts, Howard Morehouse Spelman. And yet Prairie View has received a couple of these big time donations in recent months. You have donated to Prairie View A&M University. What is it about the PVAM story that you think resonates with the surrounding community? And why do you think it is that even as one of the nation's largest HBCUs, that it keeps getting lost that you guys are also a target for that kind of monetary support?
Well, keep in mind that people generally don't know very much about HBCUs, and we labor under the difficulty that lots of institutions get attention for a host of reasons, but it's very hard for us to get the same kind of attention. So that's why we focused on getting the story out about what we're doing. We founded in 1876. For decades, we've been producing students who have graduated and gone on into professions and created a significant proportion of the middle class here in Texas and around the country. But people don't know that story. So we focused on telling the story. And that's one of our obligations at HBCUs, is to make sure that we are as transparent as we can be, that we tell our story as often as people are willing to listen to that story, because we have a very good story to tell. So secondly, keep in mind that Howard and Spelman are very much deserving of the money that they get. There's nothing wrong with the fact that people make significant gifts to them. But let's say that you're a donor and you don't know much about HBCUs. Well, you're going to focus on the heard of, right? These are the institutions that they have heard of. So more to the point, telling our story is the single most important thing for us to do. Spelman has been able to tell that story. Has been able to tell that story, and the rest of us have got to begin to do the same thing. Now, having said that, what we have in this last period been blessed with incredibly generous gifts, and I think that has to do with a number of different factors. First, in this moment where we're finally confronting race and the history of racism in this country, many people of goodwill have turned to thinking about what they can do concretely to help this situation. And this is where, again, telling our story becomes very important. So they turn to obvious places that they can be assured will make a difference in this sphere. HBCU is an obvious choice for donors. The donor who gave us money for these scholarships is not associated with Prairie View, is not associated with the region. This is just a person of goodwill who knows what we're doing, who out of the blue said, that's what I want to do for these students. So I think we are in a special moment. When George Floyd was murdered, I was so transfixed by that moment that I wanted to help my students deal with the fallout from that. And so I wrote a letter to the community saying, here's what I think we ought to do when we get beyond our mourning. Let's think about what we can do. And so I wrote a letter to the community saying, here's some concrete things that we can do. Well, that was just a letter I wrote to my community, but it got published. And to my astonishment, from around the country, people and companies and institutions and foundations started contacting us and saying, okay, I'm in. I want to support that. So we've raised a tremendous amount of money just by having people read about the proposal that I submitted to the campus about what we could do. So I would say that the community is hungry for ideas of what can be done. And I think they're at a point now where they want to do something that is concrete, right? We've got to give them some concrete answers to what can be done to help our communities.
Can I actually underscore that conversation with you a bit? Because I feel like that part of it is Howard's, Morehouse, Spelman. There is a tipping point for people to say that's an institution I want to get behind. Prairie View in its own right has long been strong in engineering, long been strong in agriculture, long been strong in several academic programs. They're one of the leading institutions we got in the country in terms of young people mobilizing voters and talking about voting advocacy and access. Prairie View is dope in a lot of ways. But Prairie View has not always had Ruth Simmons as president. And so when you talk about all of that attention, how much of that tipping point, and I mean this is the highest form of compliment I can give, how much of that is because Ruth Simmons is talking about it? And that's important for people to hear. That gives a certain gravitas. I know I don't want to make you feel like I'm bragging on myself, but your career deserves that. Do you think that that's possible at least?
Well, I when I came to Prairie View, I came with the intention of using whatever I had accomplished in my career to serve this community. And if that meant I could raise money, as I did at Brown, I mean, I ran a $1.6 billion campaign at Brown. Why would I not want to bring some fundraising knowledge to Prairie View? I mean, that's why I'm here. So does it have anything to do with that? Well, in part, I'm sure, because I have a lot of experience fundraising. Secondly, I can say immodestly, I have very strong views about this, which I voice to people. Okay, and that is, people are so accustomed to coming to HBCUs and saying, "Here, I want to give you this little gift."
Mm-hmm.
Come to me and they say, "I'd like to give you this little gift for Prairie View." I say, "No, thanks." Okay, I know what you do for other institutions,
That's right.
and if you want to patronize us, we don't accept that. If you want to help us, come help us. You have to be serious about it. That means in terms of the amount, it has to be a serious amount. In terms of engagement, it has to be a continuous engagement, not a one-shot effort to make you feel better and to promote your philanthropy. And so I think what I'm trying to get people to understand is you get treated better if you demand better treatment. And
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to do is demand better treatment. And what I learned when I was president of Brown was that that's not a bad thing, and donors don't treat it as a bad thing. They treat you as being more serious when you respect yourself enough and what you do enough to value it at a high level. And I value Prairie View at a very high level. And I say to people all the time, no, that's too little. I'm not interested. We're not going to waste our time.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that, at least from the outside, it appears over your distinguished career, a lot of people come from one sector and come into the HBCU sector and say, we need to fit Black colleges into this mold. It doesn't appear that you have done that. And that's reasonable to assume because you're an HBCU graduate. You've been on it, you sat on the board of an HBCU. So you have a global view of what schools can and cannot do, regardless of what sector they're in. But yet you still elevated the Prairie View brand in a very intentional and strategic way. What is it that enables you to do that easily? Because every school has a certain name recognition, but what do you think the assets are at Prairie View that allow you to do that, to walk in those doors and say, let's have a serious conversation about partnership or philanthropy or development or student workforce development? What do you think that the Panther story gives you to do that?
Well, first of all, not everybody at Prairie View would be in agreement with the way that I do things or the way that I think of my work here. That's important to say. And not everybody in the system that we're a part of will think that everything that I'm doing is the right thing to do. Because I come to this with a very particular perspective, and that is um, I have a finite amount of time to move the institution if I can.
Mm-hmm.
I only want to be here if I can move Prairie View significantly during my time here. That means that I have to push harder, I have to insist more, and I have to do things sometimes in a way that others would not do it. So when I first came, I said, without consultation with the faculty, Prairie View needs to have for American Studies program, period.
Mm-hmm.
It is appalling to me that an HBCU would not offer African American studies. And I just, so that's not the way to do things. And if I were at the beginning of my career, I would have been more circumspect in the way I proceeded. And so what I think allows me to do what I'm doing is first that that I am here for a very special purpose and a very special time. I think people know that. I think they know I won't be here for as long as a traditional president would be here.
Mm-hmm.
I think they know that they can get all of my attention, all of my passion for this for the time that I'm here. And I think they want to take advantage of that. I know the students do. And I know that everything that happens, for example, this gift that we've gotten, the comments that I'm getting from faculty and students is, thank goodness you're here. Okay. Because this represents a very large, perhaps the largest gift that Prairie View has ever received.
Mm-hmm.
And so that says to them, okay, yeah, you're not doing things the way you should do them, but we're going to buy in if it's going to mean that we are going to have the advantage, better resources, and improved profile and so forth. The most important, I defined very clearly when I came, two things that needed to happen at Prairie View. Number one, our students,
Mm-hmm.
to treat them well and acknowledge how precious every single one of them is, and treat them like that, right? Offer them the best opportunities we can possibly afford them, and so forth. That's number one. Number two, we have to insist that they are entitled to the first class faculty that any other student is entitled to. So
Mm-hmm.
we can't stint on building up our faculty. Those two things, the students and the quality of our programs,
Mm-hmm.
and faculty. Those are the two most important things to me. And that's what I insisted that we really need to work on. All of I call them curly cues. All of the other stuff, well, that's very nice, if we do those things, but it's not like supporting our students. It's not equal to having an excellent faculty that's supported to the extent that they need to be supported in order to do their work and so forth. So we've had low salaries for our faculty. We have increased our faculty salaries. We have had a lot of temporary faculty. We have the goal of making our faculty more sustainable with more stakeholders over a longer period of time. That's what builds a great university. I did this work at Spelman when I was there as provost, and it's very important for us as HBCUs to believe in our heart of hearts that we are every bit as good, and we should therefore be as demanding as any university, because our students are no less precious than students at Brown. They aren't. Okay? They can be as great as students at Brown. So we've got to treat them like that. And I think it's wonderful that Kamala Harris is going to be our vice president, because, the signal that sends that graduates of Howard have been doing fantastic things for many years. But that's a very visible position that makes the statement that she is as brilliant as all of the other women who've acceded to levels of power. That's a very important statement to make.
And then the final question, and again, I'm greatly honored by you coming on today. You mentioned that there's a finite set of time for you to get your work done at Prairie View. And while I would not ask you what time that is, I would ask you, how will you measure that the goals you set for yourself in coming to Texas, that you've met or exceeded them? Is it student achievement? Is it fundraising? Is it academic development? Is it facility improvement and capital design? Or is it all of the above? Are there certain things where you'll look back and say, boom, 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 I'm out of here. I'm going fishing in Louisiana. Done.
First of all, we are lucky to be in the A&M system because in terms of physical plant, we have a beautiful campus.
Yes.
And we have the capacity to have the physical facilities that we need. And so that's not a concern. My concern is really the standing of the university. Prairie View has produced extraordinary graduates. It has a stellar engineering program. It has an architecture college school that has produced the highest number of African-American architects. It has incredible nursing programs, and I could go on and on. So I definitely want to raise the visibility of the university. And that means that I know how I have to structure the university to make sure that we are structured so that we continue to tell the compelling stories about Prairie View alumni and the programs that are underway at Prairie View. I know how to do that, and I need to put a certain administrative structure in place with the highly qualified individuals who are able to do that. So far, I have to say I'm kind of failing at it, because since I've been here, 2.5 years, I've lost 3 top administrators to presidencies. So it's not going well. So I'm gonna try to hire in the future in a way that does not cause us to lose everybody, because they're going on to great success. I'm saying that half, jokingly, but really, the administration of the university is very important. I want top people running the university, and my job is to hire people. Okay. Secondly, I'm determined to get the endowment up, and to make sure that ours is one of the highest, the largest endowments among HBCUs. Third, I want to get more into financial aid. So crucial. And then I want to be able to feel that the faculty is in order. When I left Spelman, I thought, okay, I had worked on the faculty at Spelman, but I didn't realize how long-lived the work I did would be at Spelman. But the Board of Trustees and the president invited me back recently to talk about faculty development. And then I was able to hear from, the results of that work. So there's a certain amount of work that you put in to make sure your faculty have a fair chance at building their careers. And I want to put that in place here at Prairie View. And once I do all that, hopefully it'll be time to, I was happily retired. And it was wonderful. Okay. So I long to go back to that. So far, that's not working out well for me, because being back in Texas, I'm a Texan by birth, being back in Texas, now I've gotten deeply involved in a lot of things here. And so even if I retire, I'll have a lot to do, but it's been very rewarding to be back. And my students I just can't say enough about how wonderful they are. And anything that I can do for them, I stand ready to do.
Well, we are glad to have the HBCU hero still working and not ready to quit just yet. Still some stuff to do. So, Madam President, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. And it is bringing light on all of the variety of things that happen in our community. Those stories need to be told, and I thank you for telling them.